Get strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's podcast on The Beautiful Bag. I have a special guest this week for you, Stephanie Benson. She has been amazing. I just met her a week ago, and like I said, on Instagram, I think we connected on Instagram. I say it every week. You guys are probably sick of me saying it, but I'm here with her because I saw her on Instagram. I saw her right up on Hollister, and I love the energy that she brings. She's a speaker, she's an advocate, she has so much to offer. She's a Crohn's and colitis survivor, and she's living in an ileostomy. So we're going to talk about all of that. Plus, she's got a whole list of other things that you guys should know and that we do need to talk about. So Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Leanne. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have you. So So let's dig right into it. You had Crohn's and colitis, right? Well, what ended up? Tell your story.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in March of 2004. And I was a junior in high school, and I vividly remember that time because I just kept getting sick. I was losing weight. I got down to 5'4" and 61 pounds. So I was almost nothing, basically. And the doctors... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd say that is nothing.
Yeah, the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. And my mom went to the doctor's office and made this huge stink and was like, I'm not leaving until you figure out what's wrong with my baby. And that's when we came up with the Crohn's diagnosis with Dr. Garland Gossett. I was so glad that he took that extra mile to figure out what was wrong with me. And he's still my gastroenterologist today. So shout out to Dr. Gossett because he is absolutely amazing. And so Crohn's and colitis for years, before doctors even really thought you could have both. If anybody listening is like an old crony, you really understand that years ago, they thought Crohn's and colitis didn't exist together. And so I would go and tell doctors I had Crohn's and colitis, and they'd be like, no, that isn't correct. Somebody told you something wrong. And I'm like, nah, I'm pretty sure I trust my doctor, and I'm pretty sure he told me the right thing. And so I went through rounds and rounds of medication and treatments, and even a clinical trial at one point for something experimental. And it finally got to the point where I was at the end of the rope. And doctors kind of tell you the process because I'm very inquisitive. And I was like, I want to know what is it at the end game? What is it going to end up being? And they told me at the very end of it, you may have to have surgery and get what's called an ostomy. And they explained all of that to me. And so in 2013, January, I went in for a checkup and I ended up having a very high fever. And you guys can read about this on Hollister, but I had a very high fever and it turned out to be emergency surgery where I had to get an ostomy because more disease was found in my body. And so the doctors had saved my rectum, hoping that one day maybe I would be able to get my system reversed and, live a normal life. But I ended up getting a complete colectomy with an ileostomy, and it was permanent. And so I can't have it reversed. I am with the beautiful bag for the rest of my life. I'm a lifer. And I learned that term on your podcast.
Yeah, lifer, ostomy lifer.
That's me now. Yep. So it's been 8 years since I've had my ostomy, and I've just been living, and I'm 32 years old now. So I'm relatively young. To be dealing with all of this. I was in high school and all I was concerned about was being a cheerleader. I was just devastated that I could no longer cheer. I was too sick to do it. And so my journey kind of spiraled from there. I went to college at the University of Texas at Austin, and my only goal was to graduate. And I had some really tough times where I would drive to a handicapped spot in front of class, drag myself into class, go to the bathroom like 8 times during a 1-hour class, and then sleep in my car until I could make it home. It was rough. It was absolutely rough.
The more I talk to people who suffer with Crohn's and colitis and the issues that you guys go through. I mean, I have mine because of cancer, but the issues that you guys have gone through, and it's years of just pain and exhaustion and the stress of where's the toilet? Can I go anywhere? What can I do? And not being able to have that freedom that we all strive to want, right?
Yeah, we look for toilets like people look for water in the desert. It is your emergency. It is your safety. It is everything you need. And I remember my mom felt so bad because she thought I was exaggerating about the pain. And then she happened to be talking to a coworker who had experienced Crohn's, and the coworker was sharing her experiences. And she said, my mom said, I thought my baby was just having a rough time, but it really is this hard for you guys. And it absolutely is. I can't even describe. And I know how hard it was because I would go to the doctor and they would ask me to rate my pain on a scale of 1 to 10. And I had a nurse tell me one time, you've been dealing with this for a long time, haven't you? And I said, yeah, years. And she said, I know, because you're calling a 10 a 6 on the pain meter. I was just so used to daily being doubled over and just having the worst cramps and, bleeding out of my rectum. And this is the podcast to talk about it. So I'm going to get a little explicit with what happens, but people also don't realize you're dealing with all these things with your core, and your core is the center of your body, so it affects everything else. There's joint pain. My posture is terrible now because you just double over in pain. You can't gain weight. It affects your skin. It affects like everything about you. And so I'm really, really happy to be on the other side of it.
Really, really happy that you are as well. And we, and I'm a big advocate of, gut health and everything else. And you're right. When something's going on in your gut, when you're fighting a disease that's in your gut, it affects everything about you. But I'm looking at your beautiful face right now, and you're all glowy and smiling and healthy and happy. And, let's talk about that. So your life has changed. You've gotten the ostomy.
Yeah, my life has returned to me. It's not exactly the same. And there's two major things that go along with that. My grandmother, Joy, was the one who told me, when you get your ostomy, it's going to be okay. And I trust my grandmother over a lot of people in this world. But I remember that was the first time where I was like, I don't know if Granny is right on this one. But she was absolutely right. And she used to be a nurse as well. But she was absolutely right, because I thought an ostomy was going to be the worst thing that happened to me. I mean, it's poop on the outside of your body, and you have to carry this bag. And sometimes you can't feel when you're using the restroom. It just happens. So you have to have it covered at all times. And so I think number one was realizing that I got my life back. I can do sports. I can do activities. My personality, I think, is better because I've handled adversity at this point. Everything just kind of became this really big blessing. But the flip side of that coin is I had to grieve the Stephanie who wasn't sick, the Stephanie pre-ostomy. And I mentioned this in the Hollister article, but that's so big for everybody listening, because you need to make peace with the fact that you're never going to be that person again. Even if you're similar, it changes. Sometimes I go shopping and I put on a dress and it's really cute, but you can see the bag. It fits just fine, but it's too thin, or it's, the way that it's shaped, you can see my ostomy pouch. And I'm just like, nope, I'm not comfortable in that one, So there is a daily opportunity for depression and despair. When you go to the restroom and you realize it's different, like when I just started a new job and I was very concerned about the restroom situation. When everything is an opportunity to be upset, but I think my outlook has always been really optimistic.
And I can get that from you. And again, we've talked very, very briefly, and you are an optimist. You can already tell you look for the positives, and you're right. There are times when depression can come in and hit you. So how do you deal with that? I mean, is that part of the community that you're building around yourself? Is it part of some of the daily habits that you have?
Yeah. So first of all, I didn't realize I was an optimist. I just had the goal of survival. I didn't know that I was, strong or beautiful or an inspiration or the things that people have called me. I did not know that. What was in my mind was make it to tomorrow. And I've literally had a moment where it got so rough for me in high school that I remember laying across my mother's lap. And I'm, kind of big. I'm in high school, but I laid in her lap like a little child. And I prayed to God to take me that night in my mother's arms. And my mom had to sit and listen to that. But I was very serious. I was just like, God, just take me now, because I don't understand. I don't get it, But there's been such a domino effect and a waterfall of blessings that have happened to me because of my illness and because of my ostomy. An example of one is the fact that we're in a pandemic and a lot of people lost their jobs. And I had an extra level of safety and security with disability that I was able to get from the government. So I'm already in that system. They already know that I can't work sometimes because I'm sick. And so I had income coming in, which was a great thing. And the pandemic was really jarring for a lot of people. But for me, initially, it was awesome because I don't have to go out and deal with the danger of everything that's going on, you know? So I think my optimism really comes from my circle of family and friends. I mean, I'll tell a really quick story about that. When I was in high school, I always used to be freezing cold. I was always little, so I was always freezing cold. And one time, it was after I got sick, I used to like shake in class. I got even colder and I was just anemic and I was small and my bones were poking out. And so I was really, really cold in class one day. And all of my classmates at Jack Yates Senior High School in Houston, Texas, in Third Ward, came and put their jackets on my desk one by one. And they just wanted to make sure that I was comfortable and I felt okay. And being a high school student and you're dealing with flatulence, that is like the height of where the jokes get made. And I never got made fun of to my face. If they did it to the side, you know, I never saw it. They were so understanding and they were so excited when I came back to school, because I missed a big chunk of school. They were so excited when I came back to school, and my support system has always been really strong, and I thank God for that.
It's so important. Having a community is so important, in having people, they may not understand what life is like, you know, but they're there and they love you. And that's a big deal. And I see that's a huge difference between people that, you know, have a positive outlook after, even compared to some others. And one of the things that I'm loving is that we do have people like you and others that have interviewed, and we're telling our stories and we're putting ourselves out there in such a way that we are becoming the voices for some people who may not have a support system. Especially, like I said, I mean, go on Instagram, hashtag, what is it? Ostomy. And you're going to find it. You're going to find so many people who are going to support you.
Yeah, and that's why it was so important to me to build up the bravery to be able to be an advocate. It is something that takes huge bravery because it's deeply personal and it's also deeply delicate. You're talking about toilet time. You're talking about bodily functions, which we tend to shy away from or make fun of just in the human condition. And so I didn't know whether I wanted to actually tell people what was going on with me. And unless you were in my circle of people that was supporting me, there was no way that you would know, you know? And so I posted on social media that first time. And the first time I tried to do it, I chickened out. And when I finally did post it, I got such a great response and a great feedback. But what I understand is you won't survive by yourself, whether it's a doctor, a nurse, a family member, a friend, another ostomate. Somebody needs to give you the energy, the juice, the inspiration to keep going and to not give up on yourself, because this is one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. And so as an advocate, if I can show you that I survived, I hope that it would give you the motivation to be able to survive yourself. When I posted the Hollister article, 2 ladies reached out to me and told me about their experiences with ostomy and a pregnancy. And I almost started crying when I read the emails, because that is a concern for me. And they gave me inspiration to be able to say, I can have kids and they can be healthy and they won't go through what I went through.
Exactly. And I've interviewed a girl from the UK, and she had 2 pregnancies, and the ostomy actually gave her the ability to be able to have children because of all the issues that she was having. It basically, I mean, it gave her children. So there's so many things that you can do in life. So let's talk about some of those things, like dating. Let's talk about dating. How's dating been? Because you're young, I'm old. I've been with my husband 20 years. He's getting what he's getting, and that's it. Right? So dating things.
I think you're old, but I think it's lovely that you're married. Dating with an ostomy was a huge deal for me when I found out that I had Crohn's disease. I don't know why, because I wasn't a child who fantasized about her marriage or a husband. But one of my first questions to Dr. Gossett was, who's going to want me like this? It just came out of nowhere. Like, how am I going to get a husband?
It's a real question, though. I mean, that's a serious concern. It's a serious concern. And what did he say to you? Who wouldn't want you?
Actually looked at my mother and he said, "Excuse me, Miss Benson, because I'm gonna say something." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm gonna tell you something. Real men won't care."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have found that to be extremely true. I have dealt with guys who knew me before and after the ostomy and explained to me that if somebody couldn't see past my ostomy, then they were missing a blessing. But it's still awkward sometimes because I equate it to the conversation I imagine single mothers have when they go on dates. Like, when do you tell a guy that you have kids? I ask myself that question. When do I tell a guy that I have an ostomy? And I want to be upfront early because you have to deal with everything that this comes with. And it kind of mitigates a lot of the things that happen. Like, I'm not going to go, even if I stay late and I watch Netflix with a guy and we're actually just watching a movie, I'm paranoid because I'm watching my bag kind of fill up and then I don't want to use it in his bathroom and then I've got to go home. Whereas I could have spent another hour or two just hanging out. And so the formula for me so far has been 3 dates. Because by the first and second date, you get to know me and I've talked about myself and you've talked about yourself. And so I don't talk about the ostomy first off because then that becomes the focus. Mm-hmm. Well, what is that? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for the relationship? But by the second date, I hope that you have fallen in love with my smile and my personality.
How could they?
Thank you. And then I just kind of hit them with the, okay, I have this life thing going on. And I tell them you have the freedom to ask me any question that you want to, because secrecy and darkness creates confusion and mistrust. So no question is off limits. If you want to ask me about sexual positions in the future, if you want to ask me about smell, whatever it is, get it out and ask me so we can get it out on the table. And that's been really successful for me so far, talking about it on the 3rd day.
There you go. There you go. So that is awesome. That's a great example to tell people, because some people are probably asking that question, like, when do I mention it? Do I tell them up front? Do I just hand them my social media platform and say, here I am, you figure it out, right? So no, I love that strategy. And we talked a little bit about it before we turned on the record. Clothing, right? Dressing for clothes, putting on clothes, like getting it, like, how do you pick? I mean, I know what I do now for shopping. Like, I know what fits me. I know what looks good on me and I'll wear it. My husband loves me in fitted dresses and I'm like, not going to look the same.
Yeah. I was the same way. I wore a lot of fitted clothes because I was so skinny. And so anything bigger, I felt like it just like swallowed me up and you couldn't see my shape. And I was skinny, but I was shapely. And so I wore a lot of fitted clothes. And so that completely changed. I had my belly out all the time because I was like, I don't have boobs, I don't have a butt, but I have a flat stomach and I'm going to show it off. So now it's like, I'm very glad that fashion is cyclical and high waist jeans are coming back around. Ooh, so excited about that.
They call them the mom jeans and I love them.
That's what I feel the most comfortable in, and my ostomy is completely covered, because what you don't realize is having things on your waistline can prevent your ostomy from having output if it's too tight or if it's in the wrong spot, and that can cause a leak and that can cause a lot more problems. And so I'm really selective about the clothes that I wear, and I also test things out. So when I go shopping, sometimes I'll go with a full bag. And at least half full, and I won't empty it while I'm shopping so I can see, okay, once it gets to this level, how does it look? Mm-hmm. So I know if it looks okay here, then when it's flat, it'll be just fine.
That is a great tip. That's a great tip, because I still will order clothes. I'll try some things on. I mean, with COVID and everything, I just have stuff shipped now, because now it's been 5 years. Now I get an idea of what I can wear and what I can't wear. And some of the some of the companies that I work with, at least I'm allowed, when I go to work with them, I'm allowed to pick out the clothes that are going to look good on me so that I can represent them in the right way, right?
Yeah.
But no, so that is a great tip. I never even thought of that. Going with your bag
Yeah.
and seeing what's happening.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot of tips and tricks like that. Like for me, smell was a huge concern for a long time. And you don't realize that you don't smell any worse than somebody having a bowel movement. But I was so paranoid. I thought my smell was just much greater than a lot of other people's. And I was listening to a previous episode of yours, and you pointed out something really important. Initially, when you come home from the hospital, the smell is kind of exponential because you're coming down off of all of those drugs and things that they have to anesthesia and all those things that are flowing through your body. But then once you kind of even out, it's really a regular, number two smell. But for me, I wanted to kind of fix that. And so I tried everything from every company that I thought was going to work, and it didn't work out. And I don't remember how I thought to try this or whether I read it somewhere or what, but I started putting a cap full of Listerine in my pouch.
Ooh.
Cap neutralized the smell completely.
That is a great tip because I've tried a bunch as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, but you know what the funny thing is you don't smell on the outside like you think that you would. The only time you smell is when I go into the bathroom because I drink a ton of water and I empty it every time I go to the bathroom. I'm just like, oh, let's just empty it. And when you do that, then that's when the smell is there and it's in the bathroom. And then you come out and you don't smell.
Yeah, just like a regular person using the restroom. So I'm not sure when they started making it, but Hollister makes a product called M9. And ironically, it's blue like Listerine. And that has completely neutralized smell for me. So I'm not recommending Listerine. I don't know if that's okay, but I'm not a doctor.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Do you know what's something that I just started this week because I wanted to try it is celery juice, right? Because of all the benefits. And for years, everybody's talked about all the benefits of celery juice. And I can't have a lot of fiber because I have adhesions. So I have to juice it out so all the fiber comes out, but I want the vitamins and everything else. But it also is a diuretic. So I've tried it. I'm on day 4. So I'm kind of going through the scenario and see how it goes. But the first couple of days I was like, whoa. I filled 2 bags, like within 15 minutes of drinking down celery juice, empty stomach. I filled 2 bags up, emptied them, put a new bag on, and my output for the rest of the day has been minimal. It's almost like you have a normal bowel movement in the morning, like emptying everything out, and then the rest of the day is just a little bit. Now, I mean, I have a colostomy, so mine's off my large intestines. I don't know if that's a difference, but it was something I wanted to give a try. And I'm like, this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really nice, actually. And it makes me think I miss certain foods. Top of the list is collard greens. I miss excellent collard greens, but I can't have a lot of fiber either. And the other thing that I miss when I go to the movies, and it's been so long since I went to a movie because of COVID, but my family used to go almost every weekend, and I didn't miss popcorn until I went to the movies.
And you smell that popcorn smell when you walk in.
It smells so good and you cannot have it.
Nope. See, I'm okay with popcorn. I can't have kale. No kale. It ended up causing a blockage, and my doctor said stay away from kale and lettuce. So you kind of have to watch your fiber. But again, try to figure out, how do I get my vitamins in? How do I get all the right foods in? Juicing is a great option. But the celery juice, I'm telling you, if you want to give it a try, I'm trying it for 7 days. And I'm, like I said, I just finished day 4 and I'm feeling great. Like I have more energy and my skin's starting to like glow even more. And I'm like, okay, I can handle this. And I love the output. Like everything, it feels like everything just empties out in that first.
Yeah. And that's such a great point, because some things a lot of ostomates have in common that they can't have, but it's also a very, very unique journey. There are some things that work for some people that don't work for other people, or bother some people and don't bother other people. And so you have to keep track. And the whole time I have had Crohn's and colitis, when I was at my worst, doctors would encourage me to keep a food diary. I never did, but now it's kind of up here. It's all in my head that I know I can have this and I can't have that. Like I can have a cup full of cashews. If I go past the cup, that's a problem. I can have carrots, but for some reason, organic carrots bother me. Strange, very strange. Yep.
But it is amazing, because you start to say, okay, what's happening in my body? What I mean, and you're doing it from a Crohn's colitis, not the ostomy issue. I have to watch the fiber on my ostomy because I have adhesions on the outside of my colon that have wrapped around that create these little areas where the food will get blocked. So I have to just watch how much I do. Whereas you guys, I mean, you're fighting a different thing, because even if you have an ostomy, it's not like you got rid of Crohn's and colitis, but you've gotten rid of a lot of you've gotten rid of a lot of the bad.
Yeah, a lot of people have a misconception that once you get an ostomy, your chronic illness is over. No, what happens is you run out of options and then you end up getting the ostomy, because initially what doctors do is Crohn's can occur anywhere from the mouth to the anus. So doctors will cut out a diseased portion of, say, your intestines or wherever it is, and they'll sew you back together, and they'll keep doing that until they either run out of pieces or it's no longer safe anymore. And so when it's no longer safe, that's when you end up getting the ostomy. But I still have Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. I could be 74 one day and it could just appear somewhere in my body. And so you have to be careful and you have to be vigilant and you have to get your checkups. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because I had a lady tell me one time, you get lots of unsolicited advice.
You definitely do.
And I had a lady tell me one time, if you say you have Crohn's one more time, I'm going to whoop you. Well, why is that? And she told me I was speaking negativity over my life. No, I'm speaking reality, and I've made peace with what is happening, because if I was to pretend like none of this was happening, then I emotionally wouldn't be able to handle it. But the fact that I'm aware means that I can then make peace, and I can then talk to myself and get to a place where I'm okay. And either I'm okay not being okay, or I get to a point where I'm actually at peace and I'm completely okay, but I know where I am in the process. Today, Stephanie is okay. I feel good about myself. I feel good about my body. And even the moments where I have doubt or discord or a little bit of sadness, I have that moment. And then I think about all the blessings that have come as a result of this illness. And they are numerous. Extremely numerous. And I'm thankful.
I'm so glad that you said that, because a lot of people try and figure out, how do I work through my issues, and how do you get through the dark times? Because they do come, they do show up. Well, I mean, you know, for any of us, right? And it can happen any moment. Like I could wake up tomorrow and be like, I just want to throw on a bikini and run around. Now, mind you, I do, because I don't wear, right? Because that's just just me. But there's certain times when it's like, I want to wear a very fitted dress, and I want to have that look again, and you can't, and you have to almost say, okay, where am I today? Like, where am I today with myself? You know, is it writing it down? Is it having a conversation with somebody else? Is it mentally sitting with yourself and allowing yourself to feel it so that you can get through it?
Yeah, and you have to check in all the time. And I'm so glad you said that, because I was 88 pounds. I couldn't get past 88 pounds for a really long time. And I think it was just time, because my mom said she started gaining weight around this age, but also pandemic snacking. So I got up to 136, and I'm really happy to be 136 now. But I started having leaks in my pouch like crazy. Could not keep one on for more than a few hours. And it was driving me insane, because your pouch leaks, so you have to change the pouch. And we've been at home, so I was laying in my bed or sitting in my bed. And so now I've got to wash my sheets. I've got to disinfect everything, even the mattress pad, disinfect the mattress if I have to. And then you put on a new pouch, and a couple hours later, you have another leak, and you have to do it all over again. And I was just like at my wit's end. Also, it's waste, and it's coming directly from the acid in your intestine area. And so if you leave it on your body, it can erode your skin. So you have to handle it. Now, I'm going to tell you something very personal. There was a night where I was having leak after leak, and I had my last leak, and I said, I'm so sleepy, I'm not doing it. So I wrapped myself in a towel and I rolled over and I handled it in the morning. Now, you shouldn't do that, because it's the waste is on your skin, but I'm just telling you the level of just complete out of there I was, right? So I called Hollister and I was like, I'm having a problem. And I spoke to my representative, and she is so awesome. And she told me about barrier rings, because once I gain weight, my stomach is now round. It's not flat anymore. And I needed this little ring to kind of take up that gap space between my skin and the pouch. Put the ring on, no problems.
See? And that is why it's like you have, and And I love that you shared that, because you can call Hollister or you can call whatever company you're with. You do have people that will work with you to say, this is happening over and over again. How do I fix this? It's normal, because leaking pouches all the time. No, there's a fix for that. Ostomies have been around for a very long time, long time. It could be the old person's issue, but it's not. There's so many young people with ostomies. And so, they're coming up with different things and different ways for people to deal with it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So I've had a couple of leaks myself, but all my own fault, both of them, like all three. There was one leak here in the new place up here. And I was like, that was me being lazy, right? That was me in the middle of the night sleeping. And I'm like, not right. And I'm like, you should go fix it. And I'm like, I don't want to.
No,
I didn't. And I woke up the next morning, like, my God, this is horrible. And my poor husband, he's like, it's okay. It's okay.
Clean it up. That's so nice that he's so understanding.
Yeah. It's taken a while. I mean, it's taken a while. I'll tell you, I think our marriage has gotten better because it has had to have there's a lot of communication that goes on now that normally wouldn't have, at all, ever. And it's the same thing you were saying when you're going out and dating now and you're starting to have that conversation, there's no questions that are off limits. And there's times in a situation where it's like, you have to have those conversations. It's like, is it smelling? Like, I smell it. Are you smelling it? And he's like, I don't smell anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So there's that. So I want to make sure that there was a bunch of things we wanted to talk about. I think we've almost, we've hit them all. I love that. I love that we've hit it all. I lost your face.
1 second here. I think my computer's trying to die on me. It's been such a long day today.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad and so grateful that you got on today to share with us all of your tips, your tricks, your story. You were such an inspiration, Stephanie. So if there was one thing that you would want to leave the listeners with, what would that one thing be?
Well, Leanne, that's a really interesting question that I get asked kind of often, actually. And I feel like my answer keeps changing. So I have two answers. My first one is something my dad says all the time, which is keep living. And he always says it in a joking way. Like, he'll bend down and his knees will pop and I'll laugh at him and he'll say, keep living. Like, if you keep living, you're eventually going to experience all these things. But it's also a reminder to push and to fight. You are your greatest asset. Even in communicating with your family and friends, they don't know unless you tell them. Mm-hmm. So be open, be honest, communicate with them so that you can keep living. And the second thing that I would say is find community. And if you don't have any community, reach out to me on Instagram. My name is Miss Bension, MISS, and you can come find me and have a conversation, because I have been where you are. Or maybe you've been somewhere that I'm going to go, and we can have a conversation and support each other through this journey.
I love that. That is absolutely beautiful. And I know our listeners are going to appreciate you so much and appreciate your message so much. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad you reached out, because I love having these conversations.
I do too. Yeah. I do too. And I love how we've just all connected, and we're really starting to create this big community around it. And it's the awareness, getting rid of the stigma.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you again so much for being with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Leanne.
These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers.